Did you ever wonder why Christians teach that self-love is selfish and it's appropriate to put others before yourself? Well, today I'm going to do a deep dive into those questions, and I have some concrete answers for you based in neuroscience, psychology, and my personal lived experience. I was taught how to behave like that from a child. That's exactly what I was modeled. And I spent my whole life with mental illness, culminating in a suicide attempt 7 years ago. And I'm probably not alone. So let's start with a pastor who is talking about how self-love is selfish. And he gets into how he went to buy milk for his wife, and then he brings up some Bible verses after. Then we're going to get into it with a Christian woman, followed up by some neuroscience and some research on ChatGPT to see the psychology about it. Is it appropriate to put others before yourself? When is it appropriate to put yourself before others? These are all really important questions, right? And then we'll also share a Facebook post that talks about a 13th century woman who was burned at the stake for teaching that self-love creates heaven on earth, because that went against the church. So I'm Kerry Blaser, reincarnation of Mary Magdalene. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. And so today, let's start with that pastor's video to see, in their own words, how they approach self-love.
I walked into a grocery store and I was on an assignment from Amy. My assignment was simple: get a gallon of milk. But as you know, in today's culture, that's not as easy as it sounds. Because way back in the olden days when I was a kid, milk was mostly milk. Anybody remember? Your options: whole milk, skim milk, 1%, 2%. I always wondered about 1% and 2% milk. I always wondered, what's the other 98, 99%? Who knows? But today is so much more confusing. Then there was no such thing as plant-based, lactose-free, vegan, non-GMO milk. Today, not only do you have cow's milk, but you got goat milk and oat milk and rice milk and soy milk and coconut milk and almond milk. And I'm wondering, how do you milk an almond? A coconut? I can see that. An almond, how do you do that? And so I walked into the grocery store. I'm scanning the aisles from a distance, looking for the exact type that my bride desires. And I saw one. And when I say one, I mean only one. There was only 1 gallon left of the exact right kind. And as I took a step forward, I looked over to my side and I saw another gentleman, very likely on an assignment from his wife, eyeing my very same gallon that Amy wanted. So what do you think I did? As a man of God, as a Christian, as a pastor, I said, sir, you take this last gallon of milk for your wife so she can be proud of you and my wife can be disappointed in me. Of course not. What do you think I did? I pushed a 5-year-old out of the way. I fast walked down, put my shoulder down into him, nudged him in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, out of the way, grabbed the milk, and walked away victorious. You say, are you exaggerating at all, Craig? Just a little bit. I didn't push the 5-year-old, but all the rest is actually true. Why did I do that? Why do we do things like that? The answer is because putting ourselves first is one of the most natural things that we do. Raise your hand if you agree. Raise your hand. Online, type in, I agree. Type it in right now, I agree. If you don't agree, I can prove it to you, because anytime there is a group photo with you in it and 5 other people, who do you look at first? You look at yourself, don't you? And how do you determine if it's a good photo or not? If you got one old boy like blinking and another girl has hair in her face and some guy's staring off in the distance, but it's a good photo of you, is it good or bad? It's a good photo. Because putting yourself first is the most natural thing that we do. And I can't speak for you, but the world encourages my self-obsession. Over and over again, culture tells tells me, do what's best for me. I deserve my me time. My needs come first. Therefore, I'm going to focus on myself right now. Yet God's word tells us in Philippians chapter 2 that we are to do nothing out of selfish ambition. Pause on that for a moment.
Let's stop right here, okay? So I'm going to leave this up while I talk for a second. So I rely on neuroscience, okay? And today, I know Christianity was created, let's see, in the 4th century. We, canonized the Bible. So that was, before we had all the science to teach us how the nervous system works. And so for me to be able to have the courtesy to allow the man to choose the milk first if he so desire, I have to be calm, cool, and regulated in my own nervous system. And so I'm going to start with our nervous system and Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's going to say again how important it is not to focus outside of yourself, but to focus inside of yourself first. And that is the conclusion that I have also come to. And we'll get into my teachings in a minute. But what I realize is that when I fill my own cup of love first, and then I have overflow from that cup because I love on myself so much through a healthy diet and healthy exercise and meditation and yoga and spending time with friends. Then that healthy overflow is what I give to other people. And that's where the courtesy would come out in that milk situation. Right? So, but if I hadn't spent the time to care for myself, to calibrate my nervous system, to resonate with love, compassion, and enlightenment instead of fear, guilt, and shame, which he used, then I wouldn't have been capable of the courtesy because I would have been anxious with my fear, guilt, and shame, and I wouldn't have been able to smoothly and kindly offer courtesy, which I think is what, a healthy person would do. But an unhealthy person who hasn't spent the time and learned how to calibrate their nervous systems, that's the challenge that I see in Christianity. Right? So if we look at Christianity historically, they teach love thy enemy, but have they loved their enemy? Have they shown courtesy to their enemy? Or have they killed millions of heretics in Europe and in America? Because I see the latter. You killed millions of heretics through inquisitions, manifest destiny, burning people at the stake, missionary work. All kinds of killing went on in the name of Jesus Christ and God. Is that courteous? Is that loving thy enemy? Because I don't see it that way. But let's start with the scientists. Let's get to them next, because I just love bridging science and spirituality and psychology, because in a lot of ways we're all saying the same thing. And Andrew Huberman wants to start with the kids. Like, how do we teach the kids to regulate their nervous systems? Because he knows that's the solution going forward to create healthy children with a secure attachment to self. So
what we need to do is start to figure out how we can, I think, especially for the next generation of kids, how to teach them to regulate their nervous system so that they recognize that pulse of adrenaline as placing them in a compromised position.
The pulse of adrenaline he's talking about could be like a sex addiction. Sex addictions make people super vulnerable, and they make them make impulsive decisions. Nervous system is not regulated.
Have to leverage the idea that being able to hear and listen hinges on the ability to be calm. So therefore, the ability to be calm is crucial to hearing and listening is crucial to our advancement as individuals and as groups. The problem is everyone's been trying to do this backwards. They've said we all have to get along. We have to cancel culture. We all have to,
Cancel culture. That's exactly what I'm talking about in the 13th century. This woman wrote books. She was jailed for a year for saying that her intuition connected her to God. So now I have Andrew Huberman agreeing with me. I think Christianity's got to do some self-reflection.
Listen to one another. And I think, again, we have to start from the inside. We have to teach it physiologically.
Yeah, change is an inside job. And we're going to learn about that in a second with an Einstein quote.
Now, I don't have a master plan on how to do that, but one of the reasons I'm here and one of the reasons I'm, teaching neuroscience on Instagram and not just in my laboratory is until we can learn to regulate the self, I don't think we're going to get where we want to go as a culture. What we need to do is
Right. We need to learn to regulate the self to make progress forward, to expand our emotional range, become more emotionally mature, so we don't make those impulsive decisions. And so we don't push the 5-year-old. I know the pastor did not push the 5-year-old, right? We can offer the courtesy from a mature, emotionally balanced nervous system. But how do we get a mature, emotionally balanced nervous system? Well, we're going to learn from Einstein, who said the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. The field meaning the energy field or the soul, and the particle meaning the body. Physicists have proven that we all have energy bodies or souls. I know we've been hearing that for thousands of years, but we have proof now. So now we know how it operates. So let's hear from Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's a neuroscientist and really specializes in healing trauma. And what I mean by healing trauma is recalibrating the nervous system for love, compassion, and enlightenment, which is an emotion, instead of fear, guilt, and shame, because fear, guilt, and shame make us impulsive and we want to protect ourselves. And we kill people, we yell at people. Okay, so let's learn from Dr. Joe Dispenza. Wait, hang on. Here it is.
Einstein said the field, the wave, the energy is the sole governing agency of the particle. Energy controls matter. He didn't say particle controls the particle. He said the field controls the particle. If you change the information in the field, can you change the projection, the particle in three-dimensional reality? This is a holographic universe. So if the quantum field is an invisible field of energy that exists.
Okay, so it's a holographic universe, meaning it's a projection coming out of us onto the field. And this goes to my wisdom, the universe is a mirror, and you may have heard that. So the wisdom says the universe is a mirror showing us ourselves in every moment as a constant feedback loop for self-improvement. Knowledge says we attract what we are through energetic resonance, meaning a vibrational match. So now we know that our souls are energy bodies. So we can ask the question, how do we operate our souls? But Christianity locates our source of power and control outside of ourselves, in God. However, scientifically, we know that our energy bodies are regulating our nervous systems, and then that's creating our reality. And that's how we attract what we are. So, before I was healed, I attract players, men with multiple women who didn't value monogamy, who didn't treat me right, and I didn't treat them right. Right? So when I was unhealed, fear, guilt, and shame, I attracted fear, guilt, and shame into my life. But now that I'm healed, I attract a lot of love, compassion, and enlightenment because that's who I am. That's how my energy resonates at. So, and I have a laws of physics experiment to share right now that shows how this works. Okay, so Christianity in the 4th century didn't accept 17 of the 21 Gospels. A lot of those Gospels taught that heaven is accessed internally, not externally. But with the imperialism movement going on at the time, they wanted external control in an institution. So they taught everyone external control. Put others before yourself. You'll get your reward after death when you go to heaven. Rewards are delayed. Well, now we know with psychology, that doesn't create healthy human beings, evidenced by the Crusades, the millions of heretics killed, burning at the stake, manifest destiny, killing all the tree niggers, killing all the millions and millions of buffalo, all the keystone species, destroying the environment. That was all short-term, reactive, fearful, guilty, shameful actions because that was what was in their energy field, and they're all Christians. So, we all got to self-reflect, okay? But let me pull up this next physics experiment because it really shows you how energy works. It's called the tuning fork experiment. So you see, when they're different hurts, one doesn't move the other. It doesn't attract it. There's no perception of it. We're attracted to what we can perceive. And if there's no movement, you can't perceive it. Oh, they're at the same frequency. Now we perceive it. That's how we attract what we are. We perceive moving energy that draws our perception. You're much more likely to perceive a moving car than a car that, is standing still, because the moving car is the potential threat or something you desire. Okay, so this is all, I love it now because I can explain using the laws of physics. And now I'd like to get into ChatGPT to show how Christianity's thinking, this external source, locus of power and control, and then the humans are subservient to that, creates a lot of mental health problems. So let's dive into that now. Okay, so why do people believe self-love is selfish? Because I've been told that a lot, that, oh, self-love is selfish, self-love is selfish. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't have a healthy diet. I shouldn't exercise. I shouldn't give myself time to rest. I shouldn't process my emotional pain. Like, what are you talking about? But I know that now, but before I was like, that's what I was taught. People believe self-love is selfish because of a long mix of religious teaching, trauma psychology, and social conditioning that train people to equate goodness with self-denial. If the, Christians teaching that you go to heaven after you die, if you're a good person, that's a lot of self-denial. I mean, that's, 70, 80 years or more of work before you get the reward. That's a lot of self-denial. Here are the main reasons clearly and honestly. Okay, religious conditioning, especially Western Christianity. Deny yourself, die to yourself, your heart is sinful, put others first, your reward is in heaven, not here. So they're constantly getting people to focus externally as a way to control them. And you can only access, they taught that the cross is the only ladder to heaven. So when other people were teaching it, like the early Christians, that self-love creates heaven on earth, like, I don't need your institution to access the divinity inside of my own soul. That's what Jesus was teaching when, the kingdom of God is inside of you. So if the kingdom of God is inside of me, then why should I deny myself? Like, why do I have to wait to die to get to heaven if the kingdom of God is like, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in Christianity. Okay, because 400 years after Jesus was killed, they had different goals then, much more imperial, patriarchal, structured. So over time, this created an equation. Self-focus is sin, and self-sacrifice equals virtue. I think it's virtuous to be courteous and offer the guy to get the milk first. That's what I would see as virtue, but I don't think that that's really self-sacrifice. That's just being courteous. If I really needed that milk, I could just, grab the milk. So I can understand what he's getting at. He's getting at courteous. It's not self-love and it's not selfish. It's a different sentiment. But self-love and selfish are powerful terms that can get people to act in the way he wants them to act. So self-love becomes confused with pride, narcissism, rebellion against God, moral failure, trauma conditioning. In families where love was conditional, like only when you behave will you get to go to heaven. That's like treating humans like children. That's love is conditional. That doesn't calibrate our nervous systems to resonate with love, compassion, and enlightenment. That calibrates our nervous systems to be fearful that the love will be taken away, that my mother's love will be gone, my father's love. If I don't behave properly, love is gone. And emotions are punished because of self-sacrifice. Give to others first. Don't be selfish. I got to fill up my cup of love. I got to have time to do that so I have an overflow so I can pay it forward from my overflow and not from inside my cup. Is it healthy for me to give my last pair of shoes to someone else so I can put others before myself? That's not healthy. Why is it on an airplane that they teach the parents to put on their own mask first and then the mask of the children? That's self-love. I've loved myself, kept myself alive. Now I can work on keeping them alive. But if I'm not alive, how can I do that? Right? So needs were ignored. Boundaries were unsafe. You can have a boundary with the church or, a boundary like this woman I'm going to talk about in the 13th century. Well, my intuition gives me access to God. Well, she was killed because only the church can give her access to God. Children learn caring for myself causes trouble. Disappearing keeps me safe. There's no, like what Carl Jung would say, individuation, which we'll get to in a second. How does the child become separate from the parent? Well, in Christianity, the father represents God. And God and our locus of control is in God. So how in that dynamic are children supposed to learn to be independent in healthy ways and individuate in a healthy way? Well, I think it sets people up for failure, and that's what we've seen, so much fear, guilt, and shame. So as adults, self-love feels dangerous. It's not familiar. The nervous system is like triggered by it because it's a new, higher vibrating emotion. Setting boundaries feels mean. Put out, for you. No, I have to have I'm talking healthy boundaries, not F everyone and it's only me. That's not an either or. There's a range here. Rest feels guilty. I didn't learn how to rest until I was 51 years old. Saying no feels selfish. I was taught not to say no to give, overgive. I was an overgiver. The nervous system confuses self-protection with threat because it's unfamiliar, and it kind of triggers the nervous system to do something different. And what's unfamiliar feels wrong when you're unconscious and unaware that how this all operates. Confusion between self-love and narcissism. Many people were only shown two models: self-erasure, selfish domination. And they were never taught the third option, healthy self-respect. Okay? Healthy self-respect. So they collapse self-love with egoism, confidence with arrogance, boundaries with cruelty. Think about how many people in your life put others before themselves. Oh, well, they deserve, and I owe them, and them, and them, and them. That's what I did. I was never taught how to care for myself. So I felt like a hole empty in my heart. I was never able to maintain relationships. My marriage failed after 10 years. Right now my kids and I are on a break and they're in their 20s. Like, it's hard, right? But let's look psychologically, the difference between selfishness and self-love. Exploits others. Oh, do you think Christianity ever does that? Self-love respects others. Well, that's love thy enemy, right? But Christianity says that, but then, so here's the cognitive dissonance, because those 17 gospels were the exact gospels where they taught self-love. They taught that we're souls having a human experience. They said self-love is how you create heaven on earth. Heaven is a frequency in the soul. That's why Jesus never died. Our souls never die. Energy doesn't die, it just changes, and our souls are energy bodies. His body didn't resurrect. His soul did. Like, I talk to souls all day long. And I know my daughter does. Both my daughters do. Because women are intuitive. Women are the connection, the spiritual connection. So one of the ways Christianity gets it wrong is that they make the man the spiritual leader in the family. Okay, well, now we know our souls communicate through emotions. We know that women are the emotional center in the relationship. Healthy women, most of their time in their right brain. Forgiveness, compassion, nurturing, creativity, intuition, right? And so that intuition connects her to all of their souls that we know scientifically now is true. All of our souls are connected through our heart spaces, right? So, additionally, women have a much more robust nervous system to channel their own soul, to help connect other people to their soul, which is that internal work. I got an innie, men got an outie. Women are physiologically designed for inside work. Men are physiologically designed for outside work. And women with their far more robust nervous system, I channeled the souls for my children into their body. Men are designed to disconnect from their emotions, from their souls, be in their left brain so they can plan and strategize all day long. So why is Christianity teaching people that men are the spiritual lead and should be connected to God all the time, when that keeps them in their emotions, in their right brain, and not in their healthy masculinity? Oh, it keeps them subservient and easy to control. Because when people are in their fear, guilt, and shame, they're easier to control. So I got a lot of questions for Christianity. And yes, now 2,000 years later, we have all this science to help us out. And Christianity has its good parts, but like everyone else, everything else, there are some bad parts that I'm going to, bring it up here. So selfishness lacks empathy. Self-love requires empathy for self. Compassion for self. I had to find that. I didn't even know how to give compassion to myself. I didn't know how to forgive or show appreciation. I was just an empty hole in my heart. Selfishness feels empty, where self-love feels grounded. I am grounded in reality now. I do not fear authority anymore, right? Fear of God, fear of authority, fear, control. We know psychologically now how that all works. So systems benefit when people don't love themselves. Institutions, historically, churches. If you don't go to the wife, or if you can't go to the wife for forgiveness and compassion because femininity has been institutionalized in the Christian church where you pay money, then how does that help the healthy relationship between the husband and the wife? Top tier men can pay a lot of money for forgiveness, have multiple women, which was going on left, right, and center. How is that healthy for the man? He's not spending time with his emotional center. He's with this woman and this woman and this woman, experiencing all these different emotions. That's not healthy for a man. They have a far more fragile nervous system. That's why they can go into fight or flight a lot quicker. That's why they die more as infants. Institutions like empires, employers, abusive families. My family benefited from me not loving myself, so I just shut up. I just disappeared. As Carl Jung says, one does not become lonely because one has no one about them, but because one is unable to share, communicate what is important to them, to those around them. And I was unable to communicate. I just empty hole, quiet, shut down. Function better when people doubt their worth, easier to control. Accept mistreatment. Doubt their worth. Okay, yeah, I'll go fight that war. Don't do that. Don't. Accept mistreatment. Overgive. Don't question authority. Go kill 3 to 6 million people during the Crusades because they're all heretics, and bring back as many religious artifacts as you can for the king. We all know that happened. So cultures rewarded endurance, obedience, sacrifice. Okay? And mistrusted self-respect, autonomy, and inner authority. And here's the problem with Christianity, is that Christianity does not teach people how to have sovereignty over their own soul. It doesn't teach people that their soul, their field, is the sole governing agency of their particle, because that would give them inner authority, and they're taught that authority is external. But then there's where the mental illness comes in. There's why they don't know how to teach love thy enemy. They know how to teach control thy enemy. But you can only understand how to love thy enemy when you understand that we're all souls having a human experience, that we're all super connected. Like all those videos of the dogs who get super excited 1 to 2 minutes before their owner comes home every day, and it can be different times of day. That is the owner soul and the dog soul communicating, and every human, every animal, every plant does that. We are all energy bodies, proven by science now. So moral language hides fear. Self-love is selfish. That video I showed you that I'll link below is titled Self-Love is Selfish. Christian pastor. What they unconsciously mean is, if you love yourself, you might stop serving me. Stop serving God. So is God selfish? Why is God worried we're going to stop serving him? Why does he need to be served so much? You might leave. You might change. I might lose control. Those are all fears. Fear, fear, fear. I'm a multi-dimensional divine being like everybody else. Why do I have to fear anything? I come here to learn and grow and expand my consciousness. In this lifetime, I expanded it to include enlightenment, which I'm here to share with everybody how to do it themselves as an emotion. Enlightenment is an expression of the soul. But if I don't know how to mature my emotional range, I can't experience enlightenment. Enlightened beings question authority a lot, like I am doing right now. I'm questioning Christianity in total. But if I didn't have all those enlightenment experiences, I wouldn't have healed from my childhood trauma. I couldn't reach into the depths of my own soul, find more self-belief, more self-confidence, and expand my emotional range. I couldn't learn that in order to gain Mount Everest-sized wisdom, which is, enlightenment, and I've been to the Mount Everest base camp. I have a master's degree in East Asian religious studies, so I traveled in Tibet. I met my ex-husband, who's Israeli there. If I want Mount Everest-sized wisdom, I have to take on Mount Everest-sized wounds. I have to surrender to my pain to climb the next mountain, learn to surf the waves of life. Another one of my teachings in the ebook below, the free ebook. So Christianity doesn't teach this. Christianity teaches external control, rule by fear. That doesn't create healthy, emotionally mature human beings. And now we have the scientific evidence to prove it. So psychological truth, healthy love produces better boundaries. Oh, you like the immigrants, no immigrants in the country. Healthy boundaries, more empathy in healthy ways, less resentment, ability to extend courtesy, more stable relationships, lower aggression, greater responsibility. Self-hatred produces people pleasers. That's what Christianity wants. And now we know that people pleasers are like 4 times as likely to get cancer. Passive aggressive, same thing. Burnout, hidden anger, codependency, moral superiority. These all happens when children do not individuate in a healthy way from the parent. But a Christian family is set up based on wounds, based on self-hate, based on fear, based on guilt and shame. The man's the authority and the woman's subservient. That doesn't give her a ton of value. I mean, why do so many women right now, feel ashamed to be a stay-at-home mom? Because of this Christian worldview that she is less when she is not. If you ascribe her true role as the emotional and spiritual center, because souls communicate through emotion and souls are the spiritual connection, that's a hugely valuable role. And then the man is, not overburdened with this spiritual role. He can let go of his emotions and go out and work every day, plan and strategize, and take care of his family physically. The woman takes care of the family emotionally, and the man takes care of the family physically. Christianity didn't get this right. So here's the one sentence synthesis. People believe self-love is selfish because religions, trauma, and power structures train them to equate goodness with self-erasure and to confuse healthy self-respect with narcissism. Let me stop sharing. That's pretty accurate. So I thought next we can see this Christian woman who uses all of her shame, guilt, and fear to try to control people. So it's like live in action. How does this work? How does Christianity train people to think and behave? And is this someone you'd want to spend time around? Because I sure don't. Here we go. Let me make it bigger first.
Charlie Kirk, are you out of your mind? You will never believe what I just saw. I was watching the Will Cain show on Friday, and Will Cain was interviewing Charlie Kirk with Turning Point USA. But Charlie Kirk had the audacity to say, no, we shouldn't get involved. He cited our involvement with Libya and with Gaddafi, a terrorist regime and a terrorist state. But he's using that as a comparison to why we shouldn't get involved with Israel in defending Israel against Iran. Charlie, what are you thinking? Ladies and gentlemen, there is a movement. Start watching these talking head shows and look at the youngers, the 30-somethings, the 40-somethings, the isolationists. They're now saying we shouldn't be getting involved in this war. Well, you know what? I don't want to be involved in Russia's war, and I don't want to be involved in Ukraine. But when it comes to Israel, I've read my Bible, and I know I better be, because in Genesis 12:3, God told Abram, I will bless those who bless you and curse him who curses you.
Eye for an eye. Is that a healthy, mature way of interacting with people? I'll leave you with that.
And he who ignores you, Israel, I will utterly destroy. He told the prophet Obadiah that in the last days, I think we can all agree we're living in the last days. In the last days, He will wipe out the descendants of Edom because they stood by, Charlie Kirk, while their brothers were held in captivity, Israel, and they did nothing. Who agrees with that philosophy? That's Bannon. That's Tucker Carlson. That's Candace Owens. And now it's Charlie Kirk. You know, Charlie, don't use that as an excuse. Don't use a terrorist rogue state in the Middle East as the excuse why we shouldn't stand with Israel and have Israel's back. Are you out of your mind? Don't you know your Bible, Charlie? God told the prophet Obadiah in the last days he would wipe out the descendants of Edom because they stood by while their brother Jacob, Israel, was held in captivity and they did nothing. Is that what you're going to do, Charlie? You and Tucker and Candace and Steve Bannon, are y'all just going to stand there and let Israel defend herself? Well, don't speak on my behalf. And don't speak on behalf of over 2 billion Christians who agree with me, because you guys are going to sell Israel down the pike. So, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. I want to hear your comments below.
Okay. Have you heard oh, I gotta stop sharing. Have you heard this phrase, this metaphor? You're the summary of the 5 people you hang around most. Well, that speaks about energy. So when we come into others' energy fields, like coming into her, my heart doesn't open to her, so I don't internalize her negativity. But when I was unhealed, I had unhealthy boundaries, and I would constantly internalize other people's negativity. And so now I'm going to share a video about epigenetics, Dr. Bruce Lipton, to show how that works in our energy fields and how that has real time kind of disease impacts in our body. So choose who you spend time around. Let's get Dr. Bruce Lipton. He does epigenetics, which tells us what happens before genetics, what triggers the genetics.
Whatever picture you hold in your mind, the brain releases complementary chemistry that matches that picture, and it releases it into the body. And the chemistry of the blood is what controls the genes and the behavior. Children, when adopted into a family where there's cancer running in that family, the adopted child will get the same family cancer. But the point, the adopted child has totally different genetics. What was the point? It was being adopted into a family where the programming of that child is what caused the cancer. It's consciousness who releases the chemistry to the environment that controls the genes. And you can change your consciousness, and you can change your environment. And all of a sudden I say, oh my God, we were programmed to be victims.
We were programmed to be victims. I'll link this video below if you want to check it out. I learned from Dr. Bruce Lipton also that less than 1% of diseases are caused by genetics. So over 99% of our mental health, our physical health problems come from our field, because the field is the sole governing agency of the particle, the energy field, the soul. So, I mean, I haven't been sick in 6 years, but I know how to turn my wounds into wisdom. I've done enough work on myself to be able to transfer, pain into purpose. And when I let go of all those wounds, my soul naturally vibrates higher. Like 500 hertz is love, 700 hertz is joy, and 1,000 hertz is enlightenment. So if I'm spending all my time between 500 and 1,000 hertz, my body's not resonating at 100 hertz and below, which is where you get cancer, viruses, and bacteria. Okay? You see how powerful it is when a person knows how to operate their soul and maximize its function and expand the emotional range. Like, I don't get sick. I question authority. I have, spiritual guidance. I know I have access to all the wisdom and knowledge in the universe because my soul houses all of the wisdom and knowledge of the universe. Jesus and Mary were teaching this. If you look at the early Christian texts, it's exactly what they were teaching. But in the 4th century, with the rise of imperialism in Europe, people needed control to figure out how to create and run nation states. Like, we're still figuring it out, 1800 years later. I mean, this is difficult. How do you run a nation state? So yeah, we're going to make mistakes and we're going to fall down, we're going to get back up, but that's what reincarnation is for. Okay? Let me bring up this last piece, which is the woman who was burned at the stake, and shows what happened to heretics who dared to go against the grain, to question authority. So, to be a healthy woman in her femininity. Okay, so here we go. She wrote that women's souls could speak directly to God without priests, so the church burned her alive for heresy. In the 4th century, they created the exaltation of the Holy Cross, saying that the cross is the only ladder to heaven, heaven being external to self. Well, that doesn't teach me how to expand my emotional range, how to become a more emotionally mature human being, because they wanted people to control. So let's read over here what it says. She wrote that women's souls could speak directly to God without priests. So the church burned her alive for heresy. Paris, June 1st, 1310. In the place de Grève, a woman was led to the stake. Marguerite Portier, accused of heresy. Heresy was she could speak to God without the church. Had spent over a year imprisoned, refusing to answer the Inquisition. And that was the time of the Inquisition. France got it really bad. Mary Magdalene was in southern France, so a lot of people followed her teachings, which is I'm summarizing here. Self-love creates heaven on earth. Questions and defend herself before judges she didn't recognize as having authority over her soul. Well, I know I'm the only one that has sovereignty over my soul. If Jesus forgives me, that's nice, but he can't change the frequency of my soul. And the frequency of my soul determines my nervous system. When my souls experience a lot of fear, guilt, and shame, that is what calibrates the nervous system. The field is the soul governing agency of the particle. So when my energy field has a lot of fear, guilt, and shame, like Dr. Bruce Lipton said, that's when I get sick. That's when I get cancer. I mean, all the cancer institutes now point to this. 7 of the 9 reasons for cancer are emotionally based. Trauma, wounds, unprocessed emotional wounds create sickness in the body. We know this now. So how is putting others before yourself creating a healthy human being that is a great contributor to society, a great mother, a great friend, a great aunt? It doesn't. It creates control, which was the friggin' point. So I'll leave you here to think about all this on your own. Let me stop sharing. But please check out my free ebook below. It gives you, I know, this is the last thing I wanted to share, my free ebook. Okay, yay, perfect. I'm sorry, I just kind of go with the flow. I have a plan, but I mostly go with the flow on these things. Okay, here we go. Okay, so my free ebook will be linked below, and it has my 6 divine feminine self-love strategies. We're going to go to the second one. And these are all tried and true by me. And I use psychology, neuroscience, laws of physics, mysticism, shamanism. I pull it all together because I know when something is true, it's true in multiple places. Okay, I call the love hierarchy, okay? And this explains why self-love comes first. But what I mean by self-love is, healthy diet, walk in nature, which doctors are prescribing now for mental health care, exercise in healthy ways, spend time with friends, spend time alone, meditate, journal, okay? That's what it means. Fill up your own cup of love. It's so full that it's overflowing, and you are constantly ready to pay it forward to other people, like being courteous to the guy over milk. Because I can guarantee you, the guy that goes into Starbucks and screams over a blueberry muffin that wasn't heated properly does not engage in enough self-love. And that is the reason I don't like going out in society. I'll just stay home by myself, So self-love comes first, then spouse love, then child love, family love, and community love. And how I learned this is that I saw that when I was acting in codependent, unhealthy ways, I was putting others, the community, before myself. And that's when I was mentally unhealthy. And that's why when I, learned all that from healing my own trauma over the past 10 years, I really started focusing in on, Christianity teaches that self-love is selfish. Why is that? Well, I hope I answered that question today. We're all souls having a human experience, here to learn new things, okay? And my stepfather taught me some really profound wisdom. If I knew what I don't know, then I might know something. That's humility. That opens the heart. That'll set you straight for life. All right, take care. Bye.